What is going on there, alpha males? Welcome to Alpha Male Podcast, the podcast where we talk about what it means to be a man, made in the image of God, strong, dominant, in control. We don't apologize for that. Today is a Q&A episode, which you probably know if you read the title. I'm going to answer questions that you guys asked. With that, I'm going to put in a bio, and then we'll get into the questions and answers. I'll roll into a quick abbreviated bio and then into the main topic. First and foremost, I am a Christian. I don't apologize for that. God is number one in my life. I grew up hunting and fishing in the backwoods of the southeastern United States at a very early age. Some of my earliest memories are with firearms. I joined the Marine Corps at 17, did a couple of combat tours in Iraq. By God's grace, He got me through that safely. After that, I served as an instructor, an urban warfare instructor and a desert warfare instructor for the United States Marine Corps. I also served with the LAPD, both full-time as a sworn police officer and some more specialized assignments, as well as serving in the U.S. Army, full-time and part-time National Guard. I've been a FBI firearms instructor, still am an FBI firearms instructor, have been for a lot of years, also NRA certified and some other three-letter government agency certified. I've been a private contractor for a three-letter government agency I won't specify. I've been the commander of a tactical team in a large metropolitan area. By God's grace, He got me through all that in one piece, not because I'm better, but because He chose to have grace and mercy on me. I've been a professional hunter and guide. Professionally hunted things like buffalo and elk. Not many people today can say they've done that, but I'm blessed to be able to say that I have. I've hunted everything from white-tailed deer on the East Coast to mule deer on the West Coast to gray squirrel on the East Coast to prairie dog on the West Coast and elk and bear and wolf and slain all manner of beast. A state rifle and pistol champion a few times over in a few different disciplines. Now those experiences, it's not because I'm bigger or badder, certainly not bigger. In fact, I met one of the patrons in real life and he said something to the effect of, "I thought you'd be bigger." Reminded me of that William Wallace movie where he's like, "Oh yeah, if William Wallace were here, he'd shoot lightning bolts out of his rear end." Well, I'm not William Wallace, but I am the person that did all those things in the bio. But not because I'm bigger or badder. I don't think that I survived when many other young, good men did not. I give all the glory and all the credit to God, all the talents and experiences that He's given me and the things that He's let me live through. I hope to use them to glorify God and to help you today. So if I boast in anything, it's not in my strength, it's in that God had mercy on me and saved me because He had a purpose for me. And hopefully I can use those talent, skills, and abilities to serve you today. All right, this one's from Dylan. I work out constantly, but what can I do to build more endurance and getting more fit and higher energy? Well, endurance. You can do endurance type stuff. The number one thing, if you're into any kind of outdoor and survival type stuff, the number one thing I'm going to recommend is hiking, rucking with a pack. That's great for endurance. It's also great for strength, but I'll be honest, sometimes it's kind of miserable. That's going to build your endurance, both physically, but physical is a manifestation of your spiritual and mental endurance. Mental endurance, you could have plenty of gas left in the tank, but you just give up because it's miserable. So if you want to work on endurance, there are a few things that are really miserable and will build endurance. And one of those is really long distance running. One of those is rucking and hiking with a pack. But pretty much anything that is arduous and monotonous and is a long duration will build your endurance. I'm not much of a cyclist, but that also would work if you were going up and down hills and stuff like that. But anything like that, I recommend rucking because it's got a lot of crossover into hunting, survival, that kind of type stuff. And it gets you outside, which is good. If you want to build endurance, it may not just be the physical. It may be like the adverse conditions. I went rucking last night in the rain, in a thunderstorm. So there's that too. There's more than just the physical, but that will help with the physical as well. As far as more fit, higher energy, stop eating garbage. Are you eating carbs? Stop. There's no essential carbohydrate. There's only essential protein and essential fat. You don't need carbs. You live the rest of your life without carbs, period. So that's my number one advice. Actually, long before I ever heard the term keto, I almost said cardio, but keto, paleo, whatever they call it now, right? Long before that. Maybe it existed. I didn't hear about it. If you guys don't know, I don't have TV. But we're talking years ago. This goes back almost a decade now. I want to say 7-8 years I've been on a pretty strict fat protein diet. And I did that because I started doing this endurance type training. And this is before I knew that like ultra marathon running and stuff was a thing. And I heard that a Zulu warrior, who I respected, would go 50 miles in a day and then fight a battle when they got there. And I thought, well, I'd like to do that. So I worked up to, and I did 50 miles in a day. 52 miles, I think, to be exact. I did 52 miles. It just, the course turned out to be that way. And working up to that, I was eating what you might call a more traditional diet. Like, I was already off of white breads and refined sugar and stuff like that because I knew probably since high school 20 years ago that stuff was garbage. But I thought, oh, these whole grains and stuff, that'll be good. But I was just losing weight, and I wasn't fat, right? And I was losing weight doing this stuff, and I switched to a high-protein, high-fat diet. I get the majority of my calories, I believe, from fat. Maybe not the bulk of my food, because if you don't know, fat has about 9 calories per gram, and protein has about 4. So I probably eat more protein, but I get more of my calories from fat. That's how that works. But when I switched to a high-protein, high-fat diet, I just felt better. My energy went better. My body got better, stronger, fitter, more endurance. So I would really encourage that. And don't cheat, right? It's not like, oh, I'm going to eat a bunch of fat and a bunch of protein and a bunch of garbage. No, just stop with the garbage. Meat, fat, leafy greens. If you're trying to lose weight, start there. If you're not trying to lose weight, and you can also throw in there like seeds. Any kind of natural seed, nuts, stuff like that are real calorie dense, especially if you're going to like eat it on the go, like in your pack or something like that. It's a good natural, it's kind of a nature survival food, right? Nuts and things like that pack a lot of calories into a small area. And this is my super not scientific idea when I thought about this, is that if you look at animals, and let me be clear, I am a Christian. I have a Christian worldview, a biblical worldview. We're not animals. We were designed by God from jump, male and female. He created them. In the image of God, He created them. We are made in the image of God, Imago Dei. You are made special. You didn't come from a monkey that came from a amphibian, that came from a fish, that came from a bacteria. No, you were created as a man. But God has natural laws that He designs things to work a certain way. And we work like our bodies, at least these meat suits that we have here on this earth while we're in this physical plane, operate a certain way. If you look at animals, even really strong animals, like a bull, like a horse, they're really strong. But they have big bellies. They have big stomachs. If you look at an animal that you would want to look like, a predator, a lion, a tiger, a wolf, what do they eat? They eat fat and protein, and they eat leafy greens. You might think of like a big cat or a wolf is eating leafy greens, but they do. They'll eat greens to help digest their food, and for fiber and vitamins, they will eat leafy greens. So maybe look at that. And just go and look up and see if there's any essential carbohydrates. There are none. You don't need that. Look up something called gluconeogenesis. It's your body can turn protein into energy. You don't, and fat into energy. That's why you have fat, because your body can convert it into energy. You don't need carbohydrates. As much people talk about carb loading and the carbs are for energy. They are for energy. They're like the cheap government bottom side of the food pyramid. What can we feed the masses to give them enough to keep them in their cubicles? Then yeah, you probably want cheap, easy carbs. But if you want to be optimal, you probably get rid of the carbs. That's my advice. if you're going for this. And if you are going to eat carbs, look at good carbs, like ancient grain, whole wheat, like the wheat that our forefathers would have eaten, the wheat from yesteryear, not modern, genetically modified, just made to the cheapest bitter wheat. Like good, decent wheat if you're going to eat it. Real good carbs if you want to go that route, like sweet potatoes or real good carbs, stuff like that. That's my advice for you. If you're trying to lose weight, I'd say probably get rid of the carbs. It is a good question. I appreciate it. Here's a question. What do you live in? I live in a body while I'm here on this earth. I don't think that's what you're asking, but I mean, that's pretty much it. Probably put some clothes on the body so I don't get arrested and so it shades me from the elements. But, I mean, as a nomad, that varies, right? Sometimes I will literally live under a poncho out in the wilderness. Sometimes I might get fancy and get a tent, like a proper tent with like poles and all that stuff. Usually you don't need it. Usually you can make your own with just a poncho. But sometimes I'll live in that. Sometimes I'll live in the truck. Sometimes I'll sleep in the front of the truck if the weather is really nasty, so I can just turn on the heater, like when I was in the Dakotas in winter. Just turn on the heater and sleep in the front of the truck. Sometimes I sleep in the back of the truck. If I want to stretch out and it's not crazy cold, I will sleep in the back of the truck. Sometimes I will sleep in the camper. We have about 150 square foot camper, 21 feet long. It's been all over the country. We don't always take it with us. Sometimes we leave it because even that's too much. And we will just live out of wherever. But if we're around the camper and we have the camper, we will live in the camper. Camper's about 150 square feet. It's an Ozark something, I don't know. 150 square feet, 21 foot long. A big chunk of that is the gym. We have a gym, a weight rack, a Rogue weight rack with a bunch of free weights and cables and stuff like that and resistance bands. So you can get a good workout in. If we don't have that, we'll work out in the wilderness, rocks, and have the wife sit on me and do push-ups or whatever. But I hope that answers your question. I guess that's what you're asking for. So it can vary from a poncho to the front of the truck, the back of the truck, a camper. But that's how we live our nomadic existence. I don't know if this one's like fishing, trying to bait me in, but I'm gonna assume that this person is genuine. How to alpha male if you're female? Well, you don't. Here's a news flash. Hello, men and women are different. Right? Men and women are different. Don't try and be a man if you're a woman because you're going to be miserable. About as miserable as I would be if I pretended that I was a woman. I'm never going to be a woman. Right? I'm never going to be a 6'5" basketball player either. Right? I could spend my life just wishing I could be a great 6'something basketball player. But I'm not going to be. It's not how that works. Some things in life you don't get to pick. And I'd have to slap you in the face with a cold, frozen mackerel of reality. But sometimes that's just the way it is. Some things in life you can work really hard and change. Some things you cannot. And if I'm the first person that's ever told you that, I'm sorry you're getting that from a podcaster, not from like your dad or a mentor. But that's just the way that it is. So instead of me trying to be something I'm never going to be the best thing that you can be. You were created for a purpose. Almighty God doesn't make mistakes. He made you male or female in His image. He created them male and female. It says right there's a difference. He didn't make a mistake. He didn't put you in the wrong body. You were made for such a time as this. You were made for the body that you have. Embrace it. Be the best in that body that you can be. Men and women are not only different physically, they're different emotionally. They're different in all manner of ways. Embrace that. Be the best that you can be. Men are strong. Women are strong. They are strong in different ways. There's nothing wrong with that. My wife is good in so many ways that I just would never be good in those ways. Not like her. She's fantastic. She's phenomenal. I'm not going to waste my time and my life here on this earth trying to be something I'm not going to be. Be what you were created to be. A woman is not a lesser being than a man. They're just different. So stop trying to be something you're not and embrace being a strong female. That's a beautiful thing. You know how many men out there want and search for a good, decent, honorable, moral, trustworthy, beautiful inside and out woman? That's a precious gem. Don't throw that away. That's my advice. This is a good one. This is from Austin. I'm interested in the Sabbath. Would it be not resting if you go outside for a hike or do something, stretching or something like that, not necessarily working out, but still doing something physical? And here's the deal. You got to go to God for that. God gives instruction, and to be fair on this, I struggle with this too. What is and is not rest on the Sabbath? You have to answer that for you. What is restful for me may not be restful for you. In general, I do a lot of physical exertion during the week, so I try and rest on the Sabbath. That said, I will go for a walk on the Sabbath just to enjoy nature and go out in God's creation. I certainly think that going for a walk in the woods, in nature, whatever, if you live in a people hive, maybe that's just a city park or whatever, I certainly think that is okay on the Sabbath. Like just going for a walk and enjoying being outside. Now, should you not do anything all week and then grab your 50-pound ruck and be miserable like we talked about in the aforementioned beginning of this podcast? That's probably not restful, because it's by definition not restful. It's pretty miserable, right? If you're going on a short little day hike and you want to bring a short little day pack just in case with a bottle of water and emergency poncho, right, and a knife just in case, in addition to your EDC stuff, you shall love your neighbor as yourself, and preservation of life is important. So if you just want to go on a little hike with a little pack, that's probably okay. Probably not the 52-miler in a day, right? Probably not pushing yourself to the limit. That's not restful, I don't think. Maybe you could make the argument that it is, but the Sabbath is mentioned many times, and it's in fact the longest of the 10 Commandments. Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work, but the seventh day is the Sabbath of the Lord thy God. In it you shall do no work. You, nor your son, nor your daughter, nor your male servant, nor your female servant, nor your cattle, nor the stranger who is within your gates. For in 6 days the Lord made the heavens and the earth, the sea, and all that is in them, and rested the seventh day. Therefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and hallowed it. It's a holy day. It's a holy day. Here's what, and again, you have to interpret this for yourself. I'm not going to be there with you on Judgment Day. I'm not going to be able to say, well, this dude with a microphone said. It's not how that works. You don't get salvation by proxy. Is it restful for you? Honestly. Just trying to look for any excuse to work out and exercise? Or do you actually just want to get outside? I think there's certainly nothing wrong with being outside. I mean, if you look at the Hebrews, the Israelites in Exodus, when the 10 Commandments were given, they were a nomadic people. They lived in tents, right? They dwelt in tabernacles. So, with that said, there's certainly nothing wrong with being outside. Certainly nothing wrong, I think, with going for a walk. But are you doing it to get out and get some fresh air and enjoy and be restful? Or are you doing it to get a workout in? Because that's probably not restful. And I say probably not. That may depend, right? If you spend your whole week cooped up in a cubicle, and this is not me, but if you're just itching to do something, maybe that is restful for you. Maybe it's restful for your soul. And the soul, the body is an after effect of the soul and the spirit. So what I'm saying is you pray and search that out. That's my advice for you on that. This one, I appreciate this. I don't generally do the podcast for the money. I give up really good jobs to be able to do the podcast, and it's stuff like this that really humbles me. I'm blessed to be able to help out. This from R.I. Colt. First, I just wanted to say thanks for making this episode. I strive to be the best young man I can be while also living for God. That's fantastic. I'm wondering if you can make an episode on how to date/treat women. First of all, really thanks. This really makes me happy to read this. And Verbal affirmation is my love language. I started this ministry, and I started the Alpha Male podcast as a ministry. I thought I would get other men to listen by talking about sometimes guns and tactical stuff and bushcraft and hiking and survival. But that's only to get you to the gospel, right? And I don't apologize for that. If you don't like it, go listen to something else. There's plenty of pagan and garbage, secular stuff out there. But you can be a strong man and a godly man. Those are not mutually exclusive. The strongest man that ever lived was the most godly man that ever lived, the perfect man, Jesus Christ. And I started this, when I was in the U.S. Army, I was in charge of teaching new soldiers. And I also was a preacher in the Army. And one of the things we did was resiliency training. And when I left the Army, I really missed mentoring to those young men. Because, and this is me too, right? I grew up from a broken home. The bastard son of a teenage mother. I get it. A lot of men grow up without solid, godly mentors. I didn't grow up a Christian. I grew up a heathen, a pagan. Flirted with all kinds of garbage I shouldn't have. And a lot of men are lacking a strong, godly man in their life. And I'm not the perfect one for sure. I should not be your prime example. Jesus Christ should be your prime example. But as the Apostle Paul said, imitate me as I imitate Christ. So as long as I am imitating Christ, you look to me for guidance. But if I differ from Christ, you don't look to me. Look to Christ. But if I can be that example, that's humbling and a blessing. How to date/treat women. Okay. I am blessed by God. And I was talking about this to one of my really good friends today. I actually woke up early, which I really don't like doing. I'm not a morning person. I'm much more of a night owl. But I got up early. He asked to have coffee, and I was sitting down, and my wife had already left to go start work, and I was sitting down with him. It's his late morning to go into work. Wait, late. I mean, it was like 7 or 8 o'clock in the morning. And I was just talking about how blessed I am to have my wife. I jokingly say my wife is the only woman I know with all her teeth that would travel around with me and live in a vehicle all around the country. And she is fantastic. Master's degree, super smart, beautiful inside and out. I'm blessed to have her. So first of all, you probably know where I'm going to start. If you're looking for that woman, pray, right? For anything, you pray, right? When you do good, you pray. When you screw up, you pray. When you desire something rightfully, for the right reasons, you pray. And since I grew up a heathen, and that was, one of my many faults, but was using women. So I'm going to start with how to not treat women. Don't treat them like they're an object to be used and thrown away with. They're not a shiny toy, which is how culture looks at women today, as like, how good do they look? What can you get from them? How can they please you? And then when you're bored with them, you toss them away because you're out living your best life. No, women, we talked about this earlier in the podcast, and I didn't plan this out, and I didn't read these ahead of time. I read these as I go. Women are just as important as men. Women are just as valuable as a man. And that woman, whether she realizes or not, whether she treats herself like this or not, she is a daughter of Almighty God. And one day you'll have to answer for how you treat her. So you better keep that in mind. And I didn't when I was younger. And I used women and I threw them away like they were garbage. I treated them like they were so important and so valuable, and I'd flatter them and take them out and treat them good while I was using them, to be honest. And when I was done using them, I threw them away because I was done with them and I wanted another one. And sometimes I would see how long I could juggle multiple women just to see how long I could get away with it, because it was a game for me. I wasn't a Christian, and it was horrible. And that culture and society will tell you, oh, that's going to make you happy, that's going to fulfill you. But what it actually does, that's a lie. Satan is a great deceiver. That's a lie. It might seem like that, but when you use a woman, or when you're with a woman that you don't care about and are not committed to, it makes you more lonely. It makes you more empty than you would be if you were just alone. You think it's lonely being alone in solitude, and that is lonely, right? The first thing that God said is not good is it's not good for man to be alone. That's the first thing in the Bible God says is not good. That is really lonely, and I've been there, and after I became a Christian, I was chaste for a long time, meaning I did not have sex, I did not do any of that stuff for a long time, what seemed like a very long time to me. But that's still less lonely than laying next to a woman that doesn't care about you and whom you don't care about. That is lonely. That's empty. That's hollow. So don't do that. Don't treat a woman like she's there purely for your entertainment, for your enjoyment, and you're using her. That is, again, she's a child of God. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. That's not loving your neighbor as yourself. And you got to answer for that. These commandments, these laws, they were not given to keep us away from something good, like somebody slapping your hand, right? They were given, it's written, the law was given for our good. God knows what's best for us. God knows what's good for us. The law is given for our good. To think you know better than God is just ridiculous. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. So, I don't pretend to be the expert on women, right? I'm certainly not going to come up here and act like I know exactly what women want and what women think. My marriage is tough at times. I'm not going to lie. I love my wife so much, but we're men and women. We communicate differently. Sometimes I have no idea why my wife is mad or upset. And to be fair, sometimes I don't think she does either. but I love her. And you should be willing to sacrifice, protect, provide for, be there for, even when it hurts, even when it's inconvenient, even when it would be easier to give up. And I'm talking about a wife. I'm not talking about dating. I should back up. You're single, so let's put that on the table. In dating, I don't envy you. When I was young and not a Christian, I thought that was like the coolest thing. You could date all these pretty women and this and that. It's not. Dating's pretty horrible, especially nowadays. Some advice I'm going to give you is, and this may sound corny, but be who you are. If you attract a woman, and you can do it, I'm not going to lie, you can do it. You can be with all kinds of women pretending to be somebody that you're not. But that's not going to work out because you are constantly being somebody that you're not. And you do that long enough, and sooner or later you'll be lost and you won't know who you really are. And that's a miserable existence. You're always trying to be somebody else, and you don't know who you really are. Be who you are. Attract the kind of women that are attracted to you for who you are. Focus on being that strong, godly man. And the woman that's supposed to be with you, if it's God's plan, he will bring them to you. You focus on following God, being who you're supposed to be. And I'm not saying not to actively date. Of course, that's fine, and you should. You're a man, and it's good and healthy to be attracted to women. There's nothing wrong with that. But for example, I met my wife. She was a manager at a gym. I was working out at a gym. That was when I was commander of a tactical team to stop active shooters. Part of that job was we got free access to a gym. She managed that gym. And that's how I met her, and I would go into the gym often. And one of the many things we did when we were courting, that is courting like being together before marriage without, sealing the deal. I want to keep this kid friendly, but spending time together, courting, dating, we work out together a lot. And that's a good thing, right? Because we both like to work out and stay fit. And if you just gave up, working out to spend time with a girl when you're dating her, and then she's going to be all upset when you go to work out every night. Whereas if you worked out every night and she was part of that working out every night, then that's not going to be an issue later on. One of the things that people kind of have a hard time believing, but even when we were dating, even when we were courting, which you probably know, that in-love phase, that super in-love phase, I would have an alarm, and even if we were, kissing or whatever, I would say, it's time to dry fire. And you guys know, if you listen to my other podcast, Gunfighter Life, it's like, it's time to dry fire. And for X amount of minutes, whatever my regimen was, I would stop what I was doing and I would dry fire. So I'm a professional gunfighter. I've been a professional gunfighter most of my adult life. And you might not think that that's loving, and maybe she didn't at first either. But if I'm not on top of my game and I get shot in the face, or one of my guys gets shot in the face because I'm lazy and I want to do whatever I want to do instead of what I'm supposed to do, and I get shot and she's left a widow, that's not loving. Now that could happen anyway, but you get what I'm saying. That is actually loving the most loving thing that I could do, is stop pleasing myself for the moment and do what needs to be done. Although I think probably in the moment she didn't appreciate it. She appreciated it when she thought about it. And now that's not an issue because I, by God's grace, except for Sabbath, dry fire every day. And it's not like, oh, what are you doing? We're supposed to be. No, that's part of what I do. And it's not all one-sided, right? Like, I will talk to my mom generally a few minutes, maybe every couple of weeks. My wife might call and talk to her brother or her mom for hours, which, again, she had just not done that when we were dating. And then she does that on the weekend when it's our time to spend together, because she works a more traditional schedule Monday through Friday. Then I might get super mad if she wasn't doing that while we were together, and then we get married and all of a sudden she spends a big chunk of her weekend talking to her brother or talking to her sister or aunts or her cousin. She's a lot tighter with her family than I am with mine. She's got a lot more close-knit family. But I don't, because that's always been that way, right? She has been doing that, so it's not like a change in behavior. So be who you are. Be who you are. Don't pretend to be somebody else to please somebody, because that's going to be miserable long term. And when you change, it's going to be an issue. So that's my advice there. I'm not saying always be selfish. There will be times when you sacrifice things that you would normally do to spend time with the other person. And that's a good thing. Just like you sacrifice for anybody else, just like a buddy. Like if your buddy needs help moving, that might not be your favorite thing to do on a Sunday, is help somebody move, but you do it because you're helping them. And there's a time and a place for that too. But you get what I'm saying. Don't pretend to be somebody else. And again, remember that she is a child of God. She's a daughter of Almighty God. And God is watching you. Treat her that way, because she is and he is watching you. So remember that. I guess that's I had some other stuff to talk about, but I think that's a pretty good place to end it. I appreciate you guys. The other stuff I had to talk about was pretty trivial. Maybe I'll save it for later. Maybe it's not that important, but those are some really good questions. And again, I didn't read them ahead of time. I really appreciate you guys. I am humbled and blessed that God can use me at all, and it's all God. Like anything that I have is a gift from God. Any gifts and talents I've been given are a gift from God, whether it's a gift of being able to shoot well, physical fitness, being a minimalist, oratory, right? Being able to communicate a point verbally on a microphone and put it on the internet for you guys. That's a gift from God. The talents he gives you, you're supposed to use and multiply. And I guess that's how we'll wrap up. I usually do a tactical tip of the day, but I'll probably forego that and I'll do a tactical verse of the day. And it's a parable told by Jesus Christ himself. We'll talk about that and then we'll wrap up the show. Now, this will be a reading from Matthew 25. For the kingdom of heaven is like a man traveling to a far country, who called his servants and delivered his goods to them. And to one he gave 5 talents, to another 2, to another 1, to each according to his own ability. And immediately he went on a journey. Then he who had received 5 talents went and traded with them, and made another 5 talents. Likewise, he who had received 2 gained 2 more also. But he who had received 1 talent went and dug in the ground and hid the Lord's money. After a long time, the Lord of those servants came and settled accounts with them. So he who had received 5 talents came and brought 5 other talents, saying, Lord, you delivered to me 5 talents. Look, I have gained 5 more talents beside them. His Lord said to him, Well done, good and faithful servant. You were faithful over a few things. I will make you ruler over many things. Enter into the joy of the Lord. He also, who had received 2 talents, came and said, Lord, you delivered to me 2 talents. Look, I have gained 2 more talents beside them. And his Lord said to him, Well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful over a few things. I will make you ruler over many things. Enter into the joy of the Lord. Then he who had received 1 talent came and said, Lord, I knew that you were a hard man, reaping where you had not sown, and gathering where you had not scattered seed. And I was afraid, and I went and hid your talent in the ground. Look, there you have what is yours. But the Lord answered and said to him, You wicked and lazy servant, you knew that I reap where I had not sown and gathered where I had not scattered seed. So you ought to have deposited my money with the bankers, and that at my coming I would have received back my own with interest. So take the talent from him and give it to him who has 10 talents. For to everyone who has, more will be given, and he will have abundance. But from him who does not have, even what he has will be taken away. And cast the unprofitable servant into outer darkness. There will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Comments. Another verse, it is written, He came that we may have life and have it more abundantly. Now, abundant life does not mean a bunch of junk. It does not mean how much money you have in the bank, but an abundant life. Use the talents you've been given. Multiply them. If you're given a gift, you're supposed to use it and share it. Blessings are meant to be shared, not hoarded, not hidden in the ground. Use the talents you've been given for good to glorify God. Get out there. Get after it, man. Be strong. Prove yourself a man, as it is written. Be strong and prove yourself a man. Use the talents and gifts God has given you. Because why would an all-knowing, all-powerful God give you more talents if you're squandering the ones that you have? Get out there. Get after it. Use your talents. Thanks for listening, and have a blessed day.